Blog Talk Radio.
Paranormal Review Radio.
Hey everyone, it's Friday night, and you know what that means. It's Paranormal Review Radio Night with your host, moi, from New York City, Anthony Agati.
And me, Lucy Liebfried from Chicago.
The one and only show that gives you information you crave on all things paranormal. No bull, no fakes, no guessing, just the facts. But the show wouldn't be what it is without our listeners. You all demand to hear the truth, and we are here to deliver it, without any commercials, interruptions, or lame music breaks. You can get that on FM radio and other internet stations, not on our show and not on your time.
That's right, Anthony. Boy, do we have a great show for you tonight. Our phone lines are open, so give us a call. Our show number is 661-244-9831. We definitely want you to call in tonight. The phone lines are open for the entire show, so join the conversation. Now, if you don't feel like calling in, our chat room is open, so post your comments, questions, or feel free to discuss with other members. Don't forget, we have a Facebook page, Paranormal Review Radio, so stop by and visit and learn more about tonight's show. Anthony, tell our listeners what we will be discussing tonight.
Tonight's show might make you think differently about the most important question we all have. What happens when you die? Imagine being in a horrible accident or you suffer from cardiac arrest. Your life is on the brink. You have no pulse. You stop breathing. From the outside, you're clinically dead. But from the inside, you don't feel dead at all. You're calm, peaceful. You float up out of your body to watch rescuers and doctors work frantically to save your life. Flashes of your life flash by. You see a tunnel, light, and images of people that have been long gone from Earth. Then all of a sudden, you're back in your body and back on Earth. This is called near-death experience. Doctors do not believe in this mystery, but statistics show it happens to over 800 people every single day. Lucy and I are going to review the characteristics of near-death experiences and what some people have claimed to have seen, felt, and heard while being dead. Also, many people have not had a pleasant experience while going through a near-death experience. It's not all peaceful and enlightening. Some have gone to hell and back and lived to tell about it. We will discuss what scientists and doctors say about this phenomenon and what they claim really happens. Now, we've asked people to call in today to share their stories with all of us, and we hope that you do. We really want to hear firsthand what happened so that we can debate the topic and conclude for ourselves. If you have a story of near death, please give us a call. The number is 661-244-9831. We're going to put you on hold while we review some of the information and then pick up your call sort of when we're ready to talk about the stories. This is a fascinating topic, and I want all of you out there listening to participate in the show tonight.
Okay. Well, the term near-death experience was coined in 1975 in the book Life After Life by Raymond Moody. Now, since then, many researchers have studied the circumstances, contents, and after effects of near-death experiences. A near-death experience is a distinct subjective experience that people sometimes report after a near-death episode. Now, in a near-death episode, a person is either clinically dead, near death, or in a situation where death is likely or expected. These circumstances include serious injury or illness, such as from a car accident, childbirth, or a suicide attempt. People in profound grief, in deep meditation or just going about their normal lives have also described experiences that seem just like near-death experiences, even though these people were not near death. Now, many near-death experiencers have said the term near-death is not correct. They are sure that they were in death, not just near death. Near-death experiencers have reported two types of experiences. Most near-death experiencers have reported pleasurable near-death experiences. These experiences involve mostly feelings of love, joy, peace, and bliss. Now, a small number of near-death experiencers have reported distressing near-death experiences. These experiences involve mostly feelings of terror, horror, anger, isolation, and or guilt. Both of these types of near-death experiencers usually report that the experience was hyper-real, even more real than earthly life. The classic pleasurable near-death experience includes 4 phases that tend to happen in a certain order. However, each near-death experience is unique. It can include any combination of phases, and the phases can occur in any order. The phases can even overlap, seeming to occur at the same time. Any two people describing the same general phase will describe differences between their two experiences. The phase that often occurs first can be termed disassociated because pleasurable near-death experiencers no longer feel associated with their physical bodies or with any particular perspective. They feel detached and completely peaceful without seeing, hearing, or feeling anything in particular. They sometimes describe a floating sense of freedom from pain and of complete well-being. In a naturalistic phase, near-death experiencers say they become aware of the natural surroundings, typically their bodies and the surrounding area, from a perspective outside of their bodies. They usually say things looked and sounded like normal, but unusually clear and vivid. They also say that they have unusual abilities, such as being able to see walls and also see through them, also being able to hear the unspoken thoughts of people nearby. In the supernatural phase, the pleasurable near-death experiencer meets beings and environments that they do not consider to be part of the natural world. They may meet deceased loved ones or other non-physical entities. They say communication with these beings is mind-to-mind rather than spoken. They say they went to extremely beautiful environments in which objects appeared lit from within. They sometimes say that they heard beautiful music, unlike any worldly music that they've ever heard. They often say that they moved rapidly through a tunnel or a void towards a light, and then entered the light only to discover that the light was actually a being. They say that they felt completely known and completely loved by this being. They sometimes say that they experienced a life review. Now, at the same time, they reviewed, re-experienced, and experienced being on the receiving end of all of their actions throughout their life. Some pleasurable near-death experiencers say that they went beyond the light, seeing cities of light and knowledge. The final phase of the pleasurable near-death experience is a return to the physical body. Now, about half of pleasurable near-death experiencers say that they chose whether or not to return. When they chose to return, it was because of a love connection with one or more living people. The other half say that they didn't choose to return. They either were told or made to return, and then they were just suddenly back in their bodies. People describe distressing near-death experiences much less often than pleasurable near-death experiences. The following 4 types of distressing near-death experience appear in order from most to least often reported. Distressing near-death experiencers often describe the powerlessness type as having the same phases as a pleasurable near-death experience, but they say that they felt powerless while this experience was happening to them. So they resisted, they were afraid, or were angry. In the nothingness type, they say they felt as though they did not exist, or they were completely alone in total and eternal void. In the torment type, they say that they were in ugly or scary landscapes, sometimes with evil beings, annoying noises, frightening creatures, and or other human spirits in great distress. Only a couple people have described the worthlessness type, in which they felt negatively judged by a higher power during a life review. Some distressing near-death experiencers said that once they gave up fighting and the distressing near-death experience and surrendered to it, or once they sincerely asked for help from a loving higher power, their distressing near-death experience became a pleasurable near-death experience. Only very, very rarely have near-death experiencers said that their pleasurable experiences turned into distressing ones.
About 12 or 11 years ago, on December 15, 2001, the highly respected international medical journal, The Lancet, published a 13-year study of NDEs observed in 10 different Dutch hospitals. This is one of the very few NDE studies to be conducted prospectively, meaning that a large group of people experiencing cessation of their heart and or breathing function were resuscitated during a fixed period of time and were interviewed. Through those interviews, the doctors discovered who had experienced NDEs. The advantage of this type of study is that it gives scientists a matched comparison group of non-NDE patients against which to compare the near-death experiencers, and that in turn gives scientists much more reliable data about the possible causes and consequences of the near-death experience. For example, in the past, some scientists have asserted that the NDE must be simply a hallucination, brought on by the loss of oxygen to the brain called anoxia, after the heart has stopped beating. This study casts doubt on that theory. In the words of its chief investigator, cardiologist Pim van Lommel, he says, "Our results show that medical factors cannot account for the occurrence of NDE. All patients had a cardiac arrest and were clinically dead with unconsciousness resulting from insufficient blood supply to the brain. In those circumstances, the EEG, which is a measure of the brain electrical activity, becomes flat, and if CPR is not started within 5 to 10 minutes, irreparable damage is done to the brain and the patient will die." According to the theory that NDE is caused by anoxia, all patients in our study should have had an NDE, but only 18% reported having an NDE. There is also a theory that near-death experience is caused psychologically by the fear of death, but only a very few small percentage of our patients said that they had been afraid seconds before their cardiac arrest. It happened too suddenly for them to realize what was occurring. More patients than the frightened ones reported near-death experiences. Finally, differences in drug treatments during resuscitation did not correlate with the likelihood of patients experiencing NDEs, nor with the depth of their NDE. Of the 344 patients tracked by the Dutch team, 18% had some memory from their period of unconsciousness, and 12%, which is about 1 out of every 8, had what the physicians called a core or deep near-death experience. The researchers define that as a memory by the patient from their period of unconsciousness, which scored 6 or more points on the scale published by Dr. Ken Ring in his 1980 study, Life at Death, a Scientific Investigation of the Near-Death Experience. This scale includes, among other things, out-of-body perception, moving through a tunnel, communication with light, blissful feelings, observation of a celestial landscape, meeting with deceased persons, life review, and presence of a boarder. The scientists were surprised that the near-death experiences recalled their experience with the same degree of detail when interviewed again several years later. During those follow-up interviews, there was one at 2 years and then there was another at 8 years later, the scientists assessed the patient's attitudes about several key issues in life: fear of death, acceptance of others, interest in spirituality, and the like. On 13 such issues, they found substantial, statistically significant differences between the near-death experiencers and the non-near-death experiencers. For example, near-death experiencers had become much more empathetic and accepting of others since their NDE then had the non-near-death experiencers. And near-death experiencers had become more appreciative of the ordinary things in life and much less afraid of death than had the non-near-death experiencers. No two experiences are identical, and no single feature is found in every near-death experience. Every day in the U.S., like we said before, about 800 near-death experiences occur. No significant correlation has been found between religious beliefs and the likelihood or depth of the near-death experience. No significant correlation has been found between age, race, sexual orientation, economic status, and the likelihood, content, or depth of the near-death experience. No correlation between the life history, beliefs, behaviors, or attitudes of a person and the likelihood of having a radiant or harrowing near-death experience has been established. Before we talk about our spiritual bodies crossing over, we should discuss what physically happens to your body when we die. And I have to caution you, this is going to get a little bit morbid, so if you don't want to hear it, you can turn away right now. But I feel that we should bring this up because it sort of gives you the feeling and the sense of what goes on, not just spiritually, but physically in your body when you are at the point of death and then crossing over. So at the moment of death, your heart is going to stop. The skin gets tight and gray in color. All the muscles relax, and the bladder and bowels empty. Now for men will get an erection. The body's temperature will typically drop 1.5 degrees per hour unless outside environment is a factor. The liver is an organ that stays the warmest the longest, and this temperature is used to establish the time of death if the body is found within that time frame. After 30 minutes of death, the skin gets purple and waxy. The lips, fingers, and toenails fade to a pale color or turn white as blood leaves. Blood pools at the lowest parts of the body, leaving a dark purple-black stain called lividity. The hands and feet turn blue. The eyes start to sink into the skull. Now, after 4 hours, rigor mortis starts to set in. The purpling of the skin and pooling of the blood continue. Rigor mortis begins to tighten the muscles for about another 24 hours, then will reverse and the body will return to a limp state. After 12 hours, the body is in full rigor mortis state. After 24 hours, the body is now the temperature of the surrounding environment. In males, the semen dies. The head and neck are now a greenish-blue color. The greenish-blue color actually continues to spread to the rest of the body. There is the strong smell of rotting meat. The face of the person is essentially no longer recognizable. After 3 days, the gases in the body tissues form large blisters on the skin. The whole body begins to bloat and swell grotesquely. This process is speeded up if the victim is in hot environment or in water. Fluid leaks from the mouth, nose, eyes, ears, and rectum, and urinary openings. After 3 weeks, the skin, hair, nails are so loose they can be easily pulled off the corpse. The skin cracks and bursts open in many places because of the pressure of internal gases and the breakdown of the skin itself. Decomposition will continue until body is nothing but skeletal remains, which can take as little as a month in hot climates and 2 months in cold climates. The teeth are often the only thing left years and centuries later because tooth enamel is the strongest substance in the body. The jawbone is the densest, so that usually will also remain.
Yeah. Well, let's go through what happens while you're crossing over. People who have had near-death experiences often report experiencing features that form a common pattern among millions of people throughout history who have reported near-death experiences. Scientists investigating near-death experiences have found that the pattern of what usually happens to them is consistent worldwide and among people of all different ages, cultural backgrounds, and religious beliefs, according to the International Association for Near-Death Studies. People often describe their souls, the conscious part of themselves, leaving their bodies and floating upward. Actor Peter Sellers, who actually had a near-death experience after a heart attack, reported, "I felt myself leave my body. I just floated out of my physical form, and I saw them cart my body away to the hospital. I went with it. I wasn't frightened or anything like that because I was fine. It was my body that was in trouble." While having a near-death experience, people can see their physical bodies below, and they can watch everything that happens around their bodies, such as doctors and nurses working and family members grieving. After they return to life, they can vividly describe details of what happened around their bodies, even though they were physically unconscious. A tunnel appears in the air and draws the souls of the people into it, propelling them forward quickly. Despite the great speed at which they're traveling, however, people report that they're not afraid, but peaceful and curious while going through the tunnel. Those who go through near-death experiences say that they're aware of profound changes in both time and space while they're out of their bodies. They often report that they can sense time and space occurring all at once rather than separately as it does on Earth. Space and time are illusions that hold us to the physical realm. In the spirit realm, all is present simultaneously, said Beverly Brodsky, who had a near-death experience after a motorcycle accident, in the book Lessons from the Light, What We Can Learn from the Near-Death Experience by Kenneth Ring and Evelyn Ellisir-Valerio. People report meeting a powerful spiritual being who appears in the form of a white, brilliant light. Although the light that the being generates is brighter than any that people have seen on Earth, it doesn't hurt them to look at the light, and they don't feel uncomfortable in its presence. To the contrary, people say that the being of light radiates love, which leads them to feel peace about the journey that they're going through. People sometimes think of the being of light as a manifestation of God, and sometimes an angel. They often report feeling intense emotions while being enveloped in the light. One person quoted in the book Evidence of the Afterlife, The Science of Near-Death Experiences by Jeffrey Long, reflects, "A beautiful light drew me to itself. The light still touches me with awe, and tears come immediately." Angels and people who have died but knew the person having the near-death experience in some way while alive, such as family members or friends, often greet that person shortly after the brilliant light appears. They all recognize each other, even without seeing each other physically. Tennis player Laura Lynn Martin recounts in her book, Searching for Home, a personal journey of transformation and healing after a near-death experience. She says, "I became aware of many spirits. They surrounded, embraced, and supported my journey with their gentleness, knowledge, and guidance. I felt one of them approach from my right upper side. This familiar presence came forward, and my feelings changed to sheer joy when I discovered my 30-year-old brother-in-law, the one who had died 7 months earlier from cancer. My essence moved to meet his essence. While I couldn't see with my eyes or hear with my ears, yet I instinctively knew that it was Will's." Now, sometimes people who meet a spirit who knows about them, but whom they don't know because the person passed away before they were born. People usually see a panoramic movie of their lives replayed for them, featuring every experience they've had on Earth simultaneously, yet in a form they can understand well. During this life interview, people can recognize how their choices affected themselves and other people. A person quoted in Evidence of the Afterlife, The Science of Near-Death Experience states, "Every second from birth until death, you will see and feel, and you will experience your emotions and the others that you hurt and feel their pain and emotions. What this is for is so that you can see what kind of person you were and how you treated others from another vantage point, and you will be harder on yourself than anyone to judge you." When people perceive that they're in the process of entering heaven, they reported feeling blissful and that they don't want to leave even if they have unfinished work to do on Earth. However, the people who find themselves approaching hell during their near-death experience reported feeling terrified and urgently wanted to return to Earth to change their lives. Despite the fact that their physical bodies are unconscious, people who have had near-death experience reported being able to see, hear, smell, feel, and taste more vividly than they ever could on Earth. After returning, they often describe colors or music that are unlike anything they've ever encountered on Earth. During near-death experiences, people often learn information that helps them understand what had previously been mysterious to them. One person said in The Evidence of Afterlife, The Science of Near-Death Experiences, that all the secrets of the universe, all knowledge of all time, everything became understandable during that near-death experience. Now, somehow the people who go through near-death experiences figure out that it's not their time to die permanently. Either a spiritual being informs them that they have unfinished work that they need to complete on Earth, or they come to a boundary in their travels and must decide whether to stay in the afterlife or return to Earth. Near-death experiences end when the people's souls re-enter their physical bodies, when they're resuscitated and recover from whatever injury or illness that had caused them to approach death or clinically die. After a near-death experience, many people decide to live differently than they did prior to going through that experience. People who have returned from near-death experiences to their earthly lives are usually more kind, less materialistic, and more generous than they ever were before, according to the groundbreaking near-death experience book, Life After Life, by Raymond Moody.
Lucy, when we first discussed doing this for the show, I knew, and you knew as well, and we were talking about this, that we knew a lot of people either have had experience themselves or knew somebody that had an experience, and we thought that this show would be great because it's common for all of us. It is something that brings us all together. It is loving and peaceful, as you were just describing, Lucy. But also, too, we found, and Lucy, you may agree, that there are some stories that are just horrible, where folks have gone and crossed over, and they just didn't land in that beautiful, open, enveloping light that you just talked about. And I know everybody's got an opinion on this, and we actually have a few callers in the queue, Lucy. So I was wondering if it was okay if we took some calls right now.
Please, I want to hear.
Okay, we've got a few ready. I'm going to take the first one that came in, which is area code 804, and I believe that is Virginia. Hello, you are on the air with Lucy and Anthony.
Hi, good evening. My name is Hugh. I'm in Virginia.
Hi, Hugh. Hi. How are you?
I'm doing very well, thank you.
What did you want to talk about?
Well, I have had bizarre experiences throughout my life, which include UFO, paranormal, and near-death.
You've experienced them yourself?
Yes.
Tell us about the near-death experience.
It was actually a month and a half after my wife passed. I was working as a contract security officer. I was in a patrol car, couldn't breathe. I called my daughter, who said, "Dad, call the police," and they came and got me on oxygen and to the hospital, and I lost consciousness in the emergency room. I have no recollection of losing consciousness, and I was intubated where they stick the tube down you, and
right.
Most people don't survive that, but when I came to in ICU a couple of days later, I actually thought I was dying. And when I came to, I visualized my head as a big black marble that exploded in minute colorful particles in a big whoosh into the universe, reds, greens, browns, yellows, blacks, blues, and then I opened my eyes and saw family at the foot of my bed in ICU. And I interpret that I have a big message to get out to mankind before I do go back into the spirit world permanently, and being disabled as a result of the near-death experience with other medical conditions. I'm on Social Security disability, and as I was recovering and had time on my hands, when I look back over my life, I was absolutely astounded at all the experiences that I had and the synchronicities and the spirituality that runs through my whole life, and how my wife's name just is all over the place that I didn't recognize before. And currently, I feel that my big mission and vision is to bring spirituality into global economics and combine that with unconditional love. So that's what I'm working on.
Did you? That is beautiful. I have a question. Do you have any recollection of when you were unconscious until the moment you had that vision of that marble and all the colors? Was there any recollection of any memory?
Absolutely nothing. I just blanked out, and then when I came to a couple of days later, that's how, as I described, it was happening. And even related to that experience, I know I get telepathic messages about information on different things. After I had recovered, I relocated from New York, where I am from, down to Virginia, and I was walking around for exercise in an independent senior apartment building, and something prompted me around Easter time to take a look at the calendar. And when I did, I was a little bit amazed because I lost consciousness on Friday afternoon of March 16, 2007, and came to on a Sunday. Now that's a Friday, and coming to on a Sunday is a time frame of Jesus Christ dying and then resurrecting. And I had mentioned that to some reverend type, and she said, "Oh, you're very special." I said, "No, I'm not special at all, but because of that experience, I feel I have a special relationship with Jesus," and I firmly do. I have a Christ consciousness, and I ask Jesus to co-create with me.
Right.
So one of the things that people discover after having the near-death experiences is that they have psychic ability. Do you feel that you've gotten any type of psychic ability from this experience?
Well, I guess my awareness keeps elevating, and I would say yes, most definitely, but I feel that I opened up probably prior to that with the UFO encounter. And I had a telepathic message that after the UFO encounter around the same time, where I wound up exposing a former federal government bureaucrat for fraud via a front-page Wall Street Journal article, and that indirectly eventually led to the resignation of Jim Wright from Speaker of the House. That's the third highest office in the country, and the whole Wall Street Journal article initially came about from one short memo that had been sent to me. And I have a special talent of what I term creative utilization of information, but anyone can learn this, and that's part of the information that I'm looking to get out to the masses, to show that we all have unlimited creativity. We just don't realize it because we're under some kind of authority since birth, but in our quiet moments, if we learn to get out of our heads and into our hearts, align our hearts with the Creator, whoever you feel that may be, ask for divine guidance on a daily basis, and the other big key is to be in gratitude and then to take actions, because that's where you learn from what actions you take. The experiences will teach you not to take a bad action and not to repeat the bad action, but to take better actions and learn from each action you take.
That's great advice.
Message.
And that is, and we appreciate you calling in and sharing your story with us, Hugh. And
I'll share a blog that might be of interest to your listeners too. It actually has a picture of my Earth Angel wife on her wedding day. It's a very unusual picture. My profile is behind her. If you Google the word creativity, the number 777.com, it will bring it up. On the blog is also a letter from President Obama to me related to the economy. There's a very powerful little poem titled Caring, Sharing, which I dedicated to my wife. That poem is also in the President Ronald Reagan Library. It's discussed as a weapon against terrorism in the interview that can be downloaded, and currently I'm using it to help the people of Haiti who can't help themselves. It's only 3 lines long. Again, it's titled Caring, Sharing. It reads, if you dare to care, then share. If you share, pay heed, God will reward every good deed. It sort of sums up what life should be all about.
That's great.
Thank you so much for sharing that with us. That's beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you for calling.
We have another call, and this is area code 780. I believe it is Canada. Hello, you are on the air with Anthony and Lucy.
Hi, guys. It's Connie.
Hi.
Connie. Don't laugh at my accent, my Canadian accent.
We love it. We love it. So what are you going to share with us?
Well, some of you have already heard my story, but not all of you. When I was 16, I had my daughter. I was a young mom. But while I was pregnant, a close family friend had passed away. And during his funeral, it was just horrible, and everything just went south for everybody. And I wasn't healthy physically, mentally, anything like that, and here I am, pregnant. When I actually went into labor with my daughter, I had started giving up after 27 hours. It's like, no, I can't do it anymore. I was just a kid at the time. And I ended up going in for an emergency C-section where I actually did pass away. While I didn't realize it until 2-3 days later that, I was actually dead. Nobody told me until afterwards. But when I was in the operating room, all I recall is them screaming and yelling at me, and I was looking down on my body. I didn't see no bright light or anything like that. I just recall looking down on my body, watching them do everything. When I was looking down, the friend who had passed away was there with me, and I felt his arm around me over my shoulders, and he just, trying not to swear, he gave me crap. And he says, what are you doing? You have to be down there. You have to take care of this little girl. It's not your time. And so this went on. Apparently I was gone for about 8 minutes. It sure didn't seem that long because it seemed pretty fast when it all, like it just seemed like it was 2 seconds.
Yeah.
And when they actually pulled my daughter out, I felt this sinking feeling. You know, that feeling you get when you're sleeping and you dream you fall?
Yeah,
I had that really weird, strange sensation, and boom, my eyes were open, and everything was fine. And I didn't talk about it for the longest time, and it's amazing, but...
Did you remember it immediately after you woke up?
Yep. It was clear as day. Yeah, clear as day. I wouldn't talk about it until with the rest of my family for a couple months, because I was like, "Whoa."
You said you didn't want to talk about it, but after you finally did talk about it, did you feel better?
Oh yeah, because it turns out my mom opened up about our family, and there's been lots of stuff, lots of paranormal, near-death experiences. My mother herself had died on the operating table, and when she had cancer, so it was just so very strange to know that, you know, I wasn't the only one that's had some strange thing like that happen.
And were your experiences...
I'm sorry, go ahead, Lucy.
No, were your experiences similar, or did she have anything that was close to what you had?
No. Like, she's had visits from her deceased father through dreams and whatnot, but when she passed away, she didn't experience anything really.
Mm-hmm.
Connie, I have 2 questions for you. One, have you remembered the feeling that you had as you were floating above? You described what you were doing, but do you remember the feeling of that state that you were in? Was it a peaceful? Was it a nothingness? Was it a numbness?
It was really just a nothingness. Like
No feeling whatsoever.
No, nothing at all.
Because you hear all the stories all the time that folks, they feel peace, they feel the light, they feel the love, and I'm just curious as to what that feels like, and I'm sure our listeners want to know what does it mean to feel the love or feel the light, and to have experienced it if you're not the lucky or unlucky ones to actually experience that experience. So nothing, no feeling.
No. When Kevin, he's the friend, when he was with me, it just seemed like it was really actually happening. Like he came up to me, put his arm around me, and gave me crap. That is just weird.
And then after this experience, did you feel as though, or have you needed to reach out to other folks to sort of share that experience and get that validation of it, or have you been dealing with this sort of by yourself on your own?
Paranormal, passing away, all that stuff never bothers me because, I'm one of those people that believes that we're just a body, our spirit move on. I believe in the ghosts and everything else. I believe in all of that. And it's probably thanks to that happening to me. That somebody that had passed had come back.
Had you been involved in paranormal before this experience?
No, I was only 16 at the time, so.
Okay.
I really had no idea. I just, wow, that was strange. And didn't really think about it.
That's an amazing story.
Yeah.
8 minutes. That's a long time.
That's a long time.
They were working on me and screaming at me, and I remember it. I remember seeing all of that happening, and I could describe in detail exactly what they did.
Did you ever talk to the doctors or any of them to say, I saw you do that, or I heard you say this?
No.
No.
And now the hospital's all closed down and the records have been destroyed, but...
Oh, wow.
Yeah, well, it was a while ago. A few days ago.
Well, that's great. Thank you for sharing that story, Connie.
No problem, and it looks like there's lots of people calling in now.
Yeah, we do have some callers on the line, so we want to get everybody a chance to actually call in and share their stories with us. So thank you, Connie, for calling in and sharing it with everybody. We appreciate it.
Connie, thank you so much, darling. It just proves how special you are.
Oh, well, in a special way, of course.
Of course.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Connie. Bye-bye.
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 Okay. We have another caller, area code 615. Hello, you are on the air with Anthony and Lucy.
Hi, my name's Mike. I'm out of Nashville, Tennessee area.
Hi, Mike.
Hi, Mike. How are you?
Hi, doing good. I didn't have a personal near-death experience as myself, but my dad, which is pretty unique.
Yes, Mike. How are you, Mike?
I know about your story.
Sure.
Very special.
My story takes place in 1994 in Florida, and my dad had been battling cancer. And the last month of his life, he was taken care of by hospice care at the home. And it took about 3 weeks before he passed away. But the first 2 weeks, he was at a weak stage where he couldn't talk or he had to be hand-fed. So when he did communicate, it was with blinking eyes and stuff like that. And then on the third week, he went into a coma. And hospice said that he was close to passing away due to his body temperature. And they were scheduled to be off the next day, but they said if they needed us, my mom and I, who were taking care of him, if they needed our help, just to feel free to call him. And so that night, I was working long hours for the government at the time, and I told my mom if he did pass away to wake me up and let me know. Well, at about about 3:30 in the morning, he passed away, and she was there at his side. And she stayed at his side for about a half hour. She grieved, and she decided to get up to go tell me that he had passed away. And as she was leaving the room, she suddenly heard his voice say, "Where you going? I need to talk to you." And which, gave her a startle and a shock. And then the guy almost didn't talk for a month. And turned around, and there he was sitting up in the bed. And she came over and sat next to him, and he told her that he had to come back to make sure that her and myself would be okay. And they allowed him to come back to talk to us, to let us know that he would be okay. And they ended up talking for several hours. And during that time, he talked to past relatives who he said were standing right there in the living room. And my mom couldn't see him, but she said she could feel like a presence. And he talked to past relatives, friends, his first wife who passed away in 1963, who was Japanese, and he spoke fluent Japanese and interpreted back and forth to my mom and her. And,
wow.
But by the time they were done talking, it was almost 7:30 in the morning, and she says, "Let me go get Mike and let him know what has happened." And he says, "Well, I want to freshen up." And this is a guy that, for probably months prior, he was, carried around in a wheelchair or could hardly walk. And he literally walked out of his bed and walked to his own room and took a shower, got in some clean underwear, and got into his own bed. And she went and got me to tell me that, my dad wanted to talk to me, which was a big shock. And so I went to go check on him in the hospice bed, and she goes, "No, he's not there. He's in his own bed." Which, like what? That's crazy. And so I went over to the bedroom and started talking to him. And the amazing thing is, all the color was back in him. He didn't look sick. I mean, he had lost weight, but he didn't have that pale, sick look. And we talked for about a half hour, and I was just like in shock. I didn't know what to say. And so during the time period, I told him, I said, "Well, you got it rough. You've been battling, cancer for quite a while." And this response really shocked me, because my dad, he served 22 years in the Army. He was a double war veteran. And my dad never went to church the whole time I was a kid. He was not a church-go religious person. And he looked at me and he goes, "I haven't had it rough." He goes, "Jesus has had it rough." And I was just like shocked, hearing that. That blew me away. And, so, and he was just at such a peace. It was just amazing. And so he goes, "Well, if you're done talking to me, I don't know what else to say. I just want to make sure that you and your mom are okay, and I don't want you guys to worry about me, and everything will be fine." He goes, "I guess I'm ready to go back." And my mom goes, "Well, I don't know how that works." She goes, "Maybe you need to go to sleep." And so he went to sleep, and we went out in the living room. She was telling me the things that happened that night. And a couple hours go by, and we hear him yelling out. He's like, "Hello, is anybody here?" And so we went to go check on him, and he was like, "What are you guys doing here?" And we're like, "We live here." And he was shocked that he was still there, and he was disappointed. He was like a kid that didn't get his present for Christmas. He just had disappointment. And he's like, "I'm ready to go back." And my mom goes, "Well, I don't know how this works. Maybe they're giving you a free day." And so he goes, "What are we going to do?" And I said, "Well, I don't recommend getting in the car going anywhere. I don't know how we explain it." And so he says, "Well, he was hungry." So he says, "Go make me a fancy meal, something that, I would enjoy." So I went out to the grocery store, and I ended up getting some fresh crawfish and some red potatoes and corn on the cob and a 6-pack of beer, and I came home with it, and he was still walking around the house, and he helped me cook it, and we sat down at the table and had a meal. And the rest of the day, we went through family photos, watched videos, and then we went back to his own bedroom. And he told us if he doesn't wake up the next morning, that he would give us any signs that he could possible to let us know that he was okay. And he went to bed about midnight that night. And the next morning, my mom wakes me up and she says, "Hey, hospice is at the door." And I said, "Well, let him in." And she goes, "No, you don't understand. Your dad's in his own bed, and he's back in a coma. He's back the way he was." And she goes, "How are we going to explain it to him?" And I said, "Well, what's there to hide? Let's tell him." Well, when they came in, they were all upset that he was not in his hospice bed. and we tried to explain that he was up walking around the day before, and they just looked at us like we were crazy. And they kept on saying, well, we know you want him to die in his own bed. That's not right for you to drag him out of the hospice bed and put him in his own room. Right. And we tried, and my mom just goes, just drop it, Mike. Whatever they want to believe, we know what happened. And they got him back in the hospice bed, and he passed away 3 days later.
Oh. Wow.
That is an amazing story. Amazing story. I mean, how do you deal with that? How do you react to this day to what happened, to what your dad did?
It's still hard. It's still hard to believe. And today, because of that, I've gotten involved in the paranormal and that. I have tons of questions I would love to have asked him back then. But back then, I was pretty big skeptic in the paranormal, and I was just in shock, And just my mom and I would look back, back then we were just so exhausted taking care of him every day during his last few weeks that
right.
We were just numb. We were just in shock.
Had you talked to any doctors to find out if that is even possible, what your dad did, if that was even medically possible to do or to have happened?
I've talked to medical people, and they've never heard a story like that, They can't explain it. And I said, well, like I said, before he went into coma, he was so weak, we had to, feed him with a straw, for liquid, and he would blink his eyes, once for yes and twice for no kind of deal. And it was probably almost a full month, since the last time he actually verbally spoke to us.
Wow.
And like I said, he was walking around. He didn't need help. He got up and took his own shower that day, which was just, mind-blowing.
That's what my question is. You said that he actually got up and he actually helped you cook dinner? I mean, he was physically strong enough to cook?
He was in the kitchen with me, and he would stir the pot and tell me what to do and hang out, tell me, the proper spices to put in it. And then he didn't sit in the bed to eat, on a tray. He actually sat at the dining room table.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
So do you believe it was a near-death experience, or do you think it was just sort of like a divine intervention where they gave him the strength to have that one last day, that one last normal day with his family before passing over?
I'm not sure. It could be. I mean, he told us he would give us signs afterwards to let us know that he's okay. And months later, we had, even weeks later, after he first passed away, every day we had a red cardinal tap on the window. At the time he passed away for the second time. He passed away in the afternoon. And on the fifth day, I go to my mom. I said, notice this cardinal tapping on the window by the bed where Dad passed away, and it's always at the same time in the afternoon, and it's, the time that he passed away. And as soon as I said that out loud to her, the cardinal flew away, and it never came back. And one of the other things that amazed me was I asked him, I said, was there any regrets? Was there anything you're going to miss? And he goes, well, I planted all these plants, and I never got to enjoy them. I planted an avocado tree, I planted a pineapple plant, and this orange tree, and I never got a fruit off it. And that fall, all three of those plants produced only 2 fruit on it, 2 avocados, 2 oranges, and 2 pineapples. And, so we thought that was a possibly sign from him on the other side. And then that Christmas, he presented himself, and I was shopping for my mom. I bought her a 4-foot-tall angel, and as I was loading it in the car, I smelled cigar smoke. He used to smoke cigars. And heard his voice telling me to go to this specialty food store. He was a gourmet cook. And I got in the car, and I heard him again yelling at me, you need to go to this store. And so I ended up driving to the store, and when I got there, I heard his voice saying, go to the last aisle on the left, the last cabinet, you'll see what it is. It was something that he had been trying to get the specialty store to order for the past 5 years, and they finally got it. And I went to go purchase it, and the lady was all upset that I was buying it all. And I said, well, who wanted it? And she described my dad, and I opened up my wallet, and I said, well, is it him? And she goes, yeah. And I said, well, he passed away. I think he would want me to have it. And she was happy to hear that. And as I was going out the door, I heard my dad say, "Merry Christmas to your mom. Enjoy," you know.
Oh, my God. That's so beautiful.
Yeah. So every once in a while during the holidays, my mom and I will smell cigar smoke.
That is wonderful.
Has that experience that you all went through, has that sort of changed the way that you think about death now?
Oh yeah, definitely. I definitely believe in life after death.
And had you had that? Had you had that thought before this experience? Did you really think that there was life after death before, regardless of being in paranormal or not? Did you really have that sureness in yourself that there is life after death? I know it, or did this experience sort of solidify it and confirm it for you?
I think it confirmed it. I being raised up, church. My mom, went to church and that, and there was some belief in. I had witnessed ghosts prior, but I was still, skeptical. And my parents, when I did see the ghosts as a younger kid, they would always say, "Oh, it's just your, active imagination." So they had that experience with, with my dad was, definitely life-changing. And it's helped a lot of people. I've helped people that have lost loved ones with suicide and stuff like that. And it's helped comfort them, when they've heard this experience.
Oh, Mike, that's a beautiful, beautiful story. Thank you so much for sharing that with us.
Oh, you're welcome.
I think, Mike, I think you have a site or something that has your story on that?
Yes. It's on my paranormal website, which is bsparanormal.com, and also it was published in Visions Magazine. They did a story on it.
Oh, great. So everybody just go to, bsparanormal.com and check out his story if you want to learn or read more about it, or check out more of the information from Mike's story. I think that's so special and so great, and I feel as though you're privileged to have gone through that. Whether it's a near-death experience or not, I think it just is uplifting to you and to everybody else to hear that story. I think it's so great.
Well, thanks for letting me share it and calling in.
Great. Thank you so much, Mike, for calling in.
Thanks, Mike.
Bye-bye.
Take care now. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Wow.
That is a great story. We actually have another caller, Lucy, if you don't mind.
No, please. Go ahead.
Okay. This is area code 775. Hello, you are on the air with Anthony and Lucy.
Hey, Anthony and Lucy. This is Tara. Paranormal.
Hi, Tara.
Hi.
Paranormal, abnormal. How are you?
The not-so-normal Paranormal on V103.net on Saturdays. I thought I had to get my plug in there. Well, I don't know if mine qualifies as a near-death experience. I would say yes, it does, or if it's more of just an angel visit. But it happened in 2004, and I had literally committed suicide by taking a whole bunch of pills. And I had also gotten the ventilator thing where and they put me into a really super deep coma. But as I was going into the coma, I went into cardiac arrest. And my family was around me, and I don't remember this happening, but I do remember that at the time I was like falling. It was like Alice in Wonderland, kind of falling through the never-ending tunnel. And then I started feeling like all these hands grabbing me and pulling me down, and I started fighting it, and I was getting really scared, and it was like it was pulling me down, and it was pulling me down faster than I was falling. And later, after I had woke up, I had found out that at that moment I was fighting in real life. I was thrashing around and everything like that. And my friend Marcus was there with me, and he put his hand on me. And I didn't know this until afterwards, but in the hands pulling me down, I suddenly had this thought, oh, it's my friend, so-and-so. And as soon as I thought that, I heard him tell me, even if I have to follow you to hell, you're going to be okay. And as soon as I heard those words, I took comfort in that, and I remembered my faith. And as soon as I remembered my faith, the hands stopped pulling me down, and I started to float up. And then I went into, like, this suspended animation. That's the only way that I can explain it. But I totally felt like I was still, like, in the tunnel.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next thing that I know, I heard this voice, and it was clear and loud as a bell, and it said, "Tara, you've been asleep for 5 god-darn days. Wake up!" And as soon as I heard that, I was like, my thought, as I was floating up, my thought was, why is this lady cussing at me? She doesn't even know me. And then I came back into myself, and I opened up my eyes, and I looked around, and I realized that I was in the hospital. And I saw over in the corner, way over on the other side of the room, that the nurse had her head down, like writing on her paper. And so I started to cry because it wasn't her that was yelling at me. And as soon as I started to cry, I heard the exact same voice, except it was standing at my head, and I could feel it. And I couldn't see it or anything because I was still on the ventilator machine thingy. But she said, "Stop crying. I didn't bring you back to be unhappy."
Wow.
And so I stopped crying, and I woke up, and I got better, and I got off all that medication that I took, and blah, blah, blah. My life did completely change after that moment. And,
you have a different view on life now?
I do have a different view on life in the sense that I know for a fact that I am not responsible for my life and my death. Whoever was said, I did not bring you back to be unhappy. So she, at that moment, was in charge of whether I came back or whether I didn't come back.
Mm-hmm.
So that was what I took from that. And so I figured I better not piss anybody off, you know. So keep going to church, keep praying, you know, doing all that stuff, you know. But I am very confused, and I do believe that you know, I don't know if it was an angel that said that to me or what it was, but whoever it was a very, very, very strong presence and was very loud. I heard on the outside of me.
Do you have a either a close friend or a close relative or somebody within your family that had died that it may be her?
I don't know. My sister lived in San Jose at the time, and she said that she was praying, and she was saying, you know, "Tara, you've been asleep for 5 days. Come on, you got to wake up," and all that. But whoever it was that woke me up, first of all, cussed, and that surprised the heck out of me because they said, you know, they did say goddamn days, you know.
Yeah.
And that's why I was like, why is this lady cussing at me? And I knew it was a lady. But no, I had never really had anybody, except for my grandfather when I was young, who had passed away. Or, you know, anybody close who had passed away. But what was kind of weird about that, too, is a few years later, last year, or maybe it was a year before that, my mom was diagnosed with stage 4 terminal colon cancer. And she, too, slipped into a coma. And she said while she was in the coma, she was in that hyperspace tunnel, too, except that she saw these fish ladies, these fish people that were, like, operating on her and were, like, fixing her.
Wow.
So, I don't know, you know, I mean, yeah, my mom was, like, way messed up, but I don't know if that the 2 and 2 go together. I don't know, but I felt like when she told me that it was the same tunnel. She was describing the same tunnel, but it was a vertical tunnel, not a parallel tunnel.
Lucy, I don't know if you agree. I don't know if you agree with me or not, Lucy, but from your story, Tara, that's near-death experience. I mean, within near-death experience, what I've learned doing this research is that, and we've just mentioned it before, that there's so many different types of levels or phases of the experience that people will experience. And, it's the light, it's the tunnel, it's the floating out-of-body experience and all of that. But then there's also, too, where you're meeting and you're being greeted by either folks that you do know or folks that you don't know but that have passed on. And it could be your guardian angel. It could be someone who is from your past that you just may not know of, long gone from your past that, is is just there to greet you. And I've heard stories from other folks from years ago, because I'm always fascinated with all of these paranormal topics, that the folks that are passed over, or people in your family or have been close to your family, ancestors way before, somebody had described it as though they're sort of like this representative of the other side that is designated to be the greeter of that family member. So the Tara family, there could be this, woman who may have lived in the 1700s or 1800s or way back in, wherever, that was designated by the other side as being the greeter. And so you may not know who it is, or it may not be someone familiar, but they know all about you because they're, quote-unquote, sort of like your guardian angel, and they were there to greet you. And so I believe it, and Lucy, I don't know if you agree, but I think you had a near-death experience.
I totally believe it. In fact, Tara, to add to that, it sounds like what you had started out as a distressing near-death experience, which really actually turned into a good one.
Yeah, that makes me, the one thing that I got from that, too, which helps me with my paranormal investigations today, is when we were in the crypt at Washoe Club in Virginia City, and it was a Sunday, and I was like, hey, do you guys like it when we come here on Sunday? And in my voice box, I got, what about church? And then I was like, and as soon as I heard that, I was like, well, I wonder if they're stuck here because they forgot their faith, like I forgot my faith. It wasn't until I remembered my faith that they let me go, and that I was able to float up, and then I knew that I was going to be okay. So I wonder if at that moment it's like it's like they're trapped there because for whatever reason their faith wasn't in their forefront.
So it was almost like it was almost like your judgment. It was like, okay, do you believe or do you not? If you don't, this is where you're going. If you do, okay, then you've got this person that's going to save you and bring you back because you're not done yet.
Exactly. And I was fortunate enough to have my friend there that gave that to me before I left. Otherwise, I don't think that my experience would have been so good. I don't think I would have woke up from it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I wonder that, and after I heard that in my EVP.
Wow. Tara, that is an absolute beautiful story, and I really, really thank you. We both thank you for sharing that with us.
Oh, well, thanks for being here, and so I could share it. Something I don't talk about very often, in particular because of how it starts. So.
Well, we applaud your bravery in telling that story. Thank you.
Well, thanks, guys. And you're doing a good job, and good luck with that whole voting ghost hunter thing.
I doubt we'll get on, but you know what? It's fun while it lasts for the next 10 days. So.
Yeah, it gives me something to do. Vote for you every day.
Hey, Tara.
Thank you, Tara.
Tara,
okay,
take care now.
Tara.
Huh.
Tara, do us a favor, and while you're in the chat room, post the link to your show.
Okay, I will.
Okay.
Super cool. Thanks, guys.
Great. Thanks,
you.
Tara.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Wow.
I told you, Lucy, this is going to be a popular topic.
This is awesome. This is absolutely awesome. Do we have any other callers?
Yes, we have one more caller, area code 304. I believe that's Virginia also. Hello, you are on the air with Anthony and Lucy.
Hi.
Hi. What's your name?
Sharon.
Hi, Sharon.
Hi, Sharon.
Hi, how are you all?
I'm fine.
Good.
How are you?
I'm good, too. Thank you.
So do you have a story to share with us?
Well, actually, I've had 3 different experiences.
Wow.
But, yeah, I do.
Talk about experiencing now.
Well, the first one was I drowned when I was 13. And there was that light that y'all have been talking about. Mm-hmm. And it was amazing. I was laying at the bottom of the 10-foot pool, and after I got pushed in, and it was absolutely, I've never, at 13 I knew nothing about that kind of stuff, so
right.
I was laying there on the bottom of the pool, and I felt no pain, I felt no fear, I felt nothing, and this light just kept getting bigger and bigger, and closer and closer and closer, till one of the lifeguards jumped in the pool and pulled me out, and then it was like hearing a door slam, and then I could feel all the pain because I was throwing up and coughing up all this water and everything.
Right. But, I've heard a lot of stories like that where it's almost like a smack in your face when you're coming back to your body and back to Earth. It's a huge shock, and it's your soul coming back into the body, and I've always been amazed at that. That those stories that talk about that. So that's I mean, for a 13-year-old to experience that's amazing.
Yeah, I had no idea what was really going on until I got older, and then I realized, oh, that's what that was.
Had you talked about it right after the incident, or was it
No.
something that you held in for a while?
I held pretty much all three experiences, and I've only spoken to it privately to close friends, but I've never really talked to anybody about it.
What, to this day, you haven't really talked?
Just to close friends. I've never really talked to anybody, professionally about it.
What? So how come the bravery tonight?
I don't know. I kind of shoved and pushed to talk about it. The second one was where I was floating outside of my body. I was in the hospital, and the nurses had given me a medication that I'm either allergic to, or they gave me too much of it. And the next thing I know, I'm floating in the corner of the room, and I'm watching them, and they have this tube in my mouth with a ball on the end of it, and they're squeezing the ball. And I heard one of the nurses say, "Shh, don't tell anybody." And she gave me a shot, and the next thing I know, I was back in my body. I don't have a clue.
Wow.
It was just, I thought, oh, don't tell anybody. What did you do?
And how old were you when this happened?
I was an adult at that time. I had a head trauma.
Okay.
And
you hadn't talked to the doctors and mentioned that at all? And
no, I did not. I didn't say anything to anybody. I kept my mouth shut. I thought, oh, my God, they did something really bad to me, and I don't know what they did, but they were covering it up. It was pretty obvious when she said, "Shh, don't tell anybody," and it was just the two nurses that were in there, and they were working on my body, but I was sitting in the corner of the room watching them do it. And I think the thing that this frightened me was like, what did you do? And how many times do people cover things up in hospitals? But no, I didn't say a word.
So to this day, do you know what happened?
No, they had given me some medication, and because I had a head trauma, and I was having what they call post-traumatic migraine syndrome, so I was having migraines that lasted like 9 days at a time. And so I was just really sick, but, I don't know what they gave me. She didn't tell me what she gave me. She just came into the room. The room was dark. It was night. She gave me a shot of something, and the next thing I know, I'm floating in the room, and they're breathing for me. And I heard her say, "Shh, don't tell anybody," to the other nurse. And I just kept remembering, well, what did you do? And how many times does this happen that you cover stuff up for people? I mean, thank God I came back, but it was like,
yeah,
thank God. So
I would be screaming down the hall as soon as.
I guess I was just too sick to ask the questions. I don't know, but that was a very strange feeling of sitting in the corner, looking down at my body and seeing them running around, the two nurses running around and taking care of whatever. They had that tube thing in my mouth with a ball on the end of it, and they were squeezing it to make me breathe.
Right, the resuscitation of it, yep.
So,
And
Sharon, what happened the third time?
It was summer of 2006. I was hit by lightning. And,
oh, my God.
Wow.
Yeah, big lightning. It hit my right arm, and it went under the house and blew the transformer in front of the house. So we were like without power for 4 hours. And I remember I got up and I walked into the house, and nothing looked like my stuff. The curtains looked like a burnt gold color, and they were not my curtains. And the furniture was not my furniture. And I kept hearing this old-time radio show going on, like back in the Waltons. But we had no power, so there was no radio, and I kept walking through the house to find where this radio sound was coming from. And then the next thing I know, it must have happened without me even realizing it, because then I was no longer in my house. And the feeling that I had was moving laterally, not moving up or down. It was going from one room to another, and I ended up in this. At the very beginning, it looked like lots of pink and gold clouds, but I knew that there were people all around me, and this huge presence of God, or whatever you want to call him, and it was so huge, so big that I don't know how to put it into words. And there was a great sense of love and acceptance like I've never experienced here on Earth, ever. It was just bigger than anything that I've ever experienced. And then I ended up in this garden area, and there were trees and flowers and birds and all of that, and there was like a stream, and everything seemed to have music. I heard all this music. I don't know where it was all coming from, but it was like the colors were the most vibrant colors I've ever seen. The air was very clean and crisp, sweet smelling, and the water that was running over the rocks, instead of hearing the gurgling sound like you do now here, it was almost like a symphony playing. It was absolutely the most beautiful thing I've ever heard. If you could take the music, the most gorgeous symphony, and multiply that by 10,000, that's what that's what I heard. And the trees and the flowers, or the vibrancy of the colors, and it was amazing. It was just absolutely beautiful. But the biggest thing was the sense of total acceptance, and I learned at that time that God doesn't judge you. We judge ourselves, because there was absolutely no judgment whatsoever. And he did show me a life review, and it was really strange because there was no feeling whatsoever as I was watching. It was almost like a little movie, and I was watching every single thing that happened in my life, but it was very detached feeling, sort of like just like it was being shown to me as a matter of information. And then oh shoot.
How did you end up coming back into your body?
It just happened, and I had no sense of time, I have no idea how long I was out of it. It seemed like things were moving very fast, but it was almost like time stopped. So I have absolutely no idea how long I was there. I just know that I was.
Yeah.
So what happened when you came back?
Well, I ended up, of course there were char marks on the stairs where the lightning had gone through me, so you could see where my butt was and where my feet were.
Wow.
And I ended up having, the doctor had ran some tests on my heart and found that I have something called a right bundle branch block, which is an electrical glitch in the heart, and that was as a result of the lightning.
Mhm.
So, but I can't tell you how long I was actually out. I don't really know, because it seemed like, when I came to, it was like, what in the world just happened?
I mean, were you a cat? Were you a cat in your previous life? Because you've got like 9 lives.
Well, actually, that was not the first time that I have been hit by lightning. I've been hit 4 times.
Oh my gosh! Don't tell me anymore. Don't tell me anymore. You are the unluckiest person I have ever met.
No, actually, sweetie, I'm the luckiest person you ever
Yes,
met.
Yeah, I should say that. Actually, I should say that. Yeah, you're right.
Because you've gotten a vision that I think a lot of us crave, and I think you were given an opportunity to see what a lot of us hear about.
It was amazing. And so I guess my point is that I want people to know that it really does exist. It is a place, but it's not, it's not the old-fashioned Catholic belief or whatever that, heaven is up and hell is down. It isn't like that at all. It's more moving laterally, because, or just like if you're walking from one room in your house to the next room in your house. It's that fast. It's that, and it's that.
I like that phrase. I like that phrase that you just said. It's almost like moving laterally. It's not the up and the down. It's moving laterally, and I've heard that a lot with, interdimensional beings and stuff like that. That it's sort of that passing in between doorways. It's that lateral movement, and your body is moving in that direction forward. That you just described it amazingly.
Oh, well, thank you. There was another thing I wanted to let you all know. When I arrived at this place, which I call heaven, I'm not sure what anybody else calls it, but to me it was heaven. I mean, I've never seen anything so much beauty in my life, and huge love and forgiveness and acceptance and understanding. It was unbelievable. But when I very first got there, I was kind of disoriented, and I looked down my body, like down the front of me, just to feel what was still there, what was going on. And I still had the same clothes that I had on, and I looked down, I could see my feet, but I wasn't concerned about whether my hair looked nice or whether I was skinny enough or pretty enough or whatever. None of that mattered. And my body felt very, very light. It was, like our bodies here on Earth, we feel very heavy from the gravity and whatever. But it was so light feeling. It was so, I think that's the definition of a light body.
So, Sharon, do you have any are there any abilities that you have now after experiencing all this? I mean, do you feel any type of psychic ability or anything that has happened to you?
Well, I was kind of born with that, actually. All my life I've been able to see spirits and talk to ancestors, and people who've passed on will just appear to me. And, sometimes I'll be carrying on a conversation with somebody and not have a clue that they're dead until after I've talked to them for a few minutes, and it's like, oh, my God. Okay, so now what can I do for you? And I've been able to see some that look really solid and some that look kind of see-through, but you can see the details of their clothes and you can see what they're wearing, the colors, and It seemed like there are times when I see them everywhere, and then there are times when it quiets down and I don't see them everywhere. But I was able to hear them talk to me. I've been able to smell them. I have so many stories that I have no idea.
You need to write a book.
Well, actually, I'm working on that now.
See, there you go.
Good.
That you have amazing stories, and I'm surprised that you've held this in and not told this to anybody, because you speak it so eloquently and so vividly that I'm visualizing everything that you're saying, and it's an amazing story, and I'm glad you were able to come online and share with all of us. I think it's a story that you need to get out there, and I encourage you to write your book and finish it. I think it'll be an awesome story.
Oh, thank you.
Sharon, thank you so much for sharing that. Thank you.
Thank you for having me on.
Thank you, Sharon. Take care now. And
Sharon, when you finish that book, you need to come back and you need to tell us, the title. Let us know about it so that we can share it with everybody.
Okay, I'll do that. Thank you.
Okay.
Great.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Sharon.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Oh, I'm loving this. This is so awesome.
That story is amazing. I mean, to me, she is the unluckiest person, but she was right. She is the luckiest person because she's lived through all of that.
She went to heaven. She's lucky.
She's been there and back, and been there and back, and so that's amazing. We have another caller, Lucy, if you don't mind.
Yes, please.
Okay, and I don't have any information on this, but hello, you are on the air with Lucy and Anthony.
Hi, Lucy and Anthony. Are you talking about me?
We are talking about you.
I'm Kim.
Hi, Kim.
Hi,
How are you?
I'm another Aries.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh, two Aries on the phone. Uh-oh. Go ahead.
So,
go on, Lucy.
No, Kim, share your story. I see that you have a story that you want to share with us.
I do. I'm pretty new to Blog Talk Radio, only a couple weeks, and I just saw your site, and I had a near-death experience and recently wrote a book about it. I actually did the old-fashioned way of copywriting. This happened to me in 1995, and I journaled it all and then mailed it to myself, left it in a trunk in the basement for all of these years, and my mom's been after me for years to write a book about it, and in a kind of unfortunate way, my desk got cleared for me and gave me the time to be able to do it, and a lot of things lined up, actually, that I think are quite miraculous. Some obstacles were in the way that got lifted, and this was my time to be writing it, and it was just released on December 14th, and
What's it called?
It's called In a Flash, Miracles Here and Beyond, and it has a website, inaflash.org. I suffered a ruptured brain aneurysm in 1995. I was misdiagnosed and sent home. If I wouldn't have been lucky, and I won't go into that, but I would have died. I lived on my own, and I was sent home, and had I not, by a stroke of fate, been with a family member that day in an unusual circumstance, I wouldn't have made it. But the next day, I entered into 11 days of a coma, and while I was there, I remember experiencing the color green, like if you were laying down and somebody had put a swath of cloth over your eyes.
Mm-hmm.
I just saw, when I became aware, I was aware of this color green, and like the last caller, I was looking at it curiously because it was so intense and sharp and brighter than any color I had ever seen. So I just remember feeling curious, wondrous, kind of looking, just watching, and the color kept going back and back and back and back until I could see the sprig of like a pine tree, and it was almost like I was up in the pine tree. I could see the needles. It was like it was magnified, and the little knobby brown things on the branch, and the scene kept moving back until I was standing next to the pine tree, and I didn't see my body, but I was looking out my eyes, and it was into a large grassy field, and there was a blue sky with white pillowy clouds going past, and again, I just felt very safe, and I guess another way to say it is I wasn't afraid. I was still just very curious and wondrous about all these colors. It just, my eyesight's not very good in real life, and in that life I was just blown away at how sharp everything was. And so as I looked out, I saw a gathering of people in the distance, and they were in period dress. And at that point, a little girl, maybe a 5 or 6 year old little girl, came running through my field of vision, and she had long blonde hair and ribbons flowing back from her hair, and she was kind of in a pioneer type dress, and she was playing that game where they roll a hula hoop in front of them and guide it with a stick.
Yes, yeah.
And she ran through the scene from right to left, and she was laughing as she was running through, and I remember feeling like I was smiling. And just as she went through the scene, my eyes were on the back of a man who had his back to me. My eyes were down by his shoes, and as my eyes were moving up the screen, up his body, he was starting to turn around. And when our eyes met, he was my grandfather, who I had been very close to, who had passed away about a decade before. And what was, well, first I'll say, it was instant recognition. I smiled. It was almost as if you're hanging back at a party to see if there's someone you know. And when our eyes locked and I knew it was him, I was really happy, and I took a step to go toward him. I wanted to go toward him, and he let me know, not by speaking, but it just came to me that it wasn't my time, and it was as if I hit plexiglass, and then it was over. And
wow.
The footnote to that is that was what I saw, but the thing that was unusual is my grandpa was a short Italian man with a big belly, balding, with gray hair the whole time I knew him. And this was my grandfather, younger than I had ever seen him. He was slim and had a full head of dark hair, and there had never been any photographs because he grew up in an orphanage, and so I couldn't have seen him at that time, but it was, there wasn't any doubt in my mind that it was him. And so that's what my experience is, and what my book is about. It talks about the near-death experience, but there were miracles that happened going into my illness, during my illness, obviously, like I just talked about, but also in my recovery, and all the way up to writing the book. Things just fell into place. It's interesting. If I would have tried to write it back, when I had sent the journal to myself, there was a reason I've seen that I didn't write the book back then, because more was going to be revealed, more miracles were going to happen that were going to bring my story full circle in this time and in this place when I wrote this book.
That's wonderful.
What was the injury that you had, or the illness?
A ruptured brain aneurysm.
Wow. Okay.
Usually, back then in 1995, about 3% of the people who had what I had survived. And so most did get to cross over. And I have a little different of a take on it than a lot of people do. I feel like, and this is just personal, but I feel like I was in the entryway of heaven, if you will, like the pearly gates kind of a place. In my mind, and I'm not saying other people haven't, but it seems to me like I kind of believe personally that if a person goes to heaven, they don't get to come back. They've crossed over and they're in heaven. I think it would be a little grandiose to think that a human being could describe what heaven is like. And so what I got out of the experience is just that life does continue after death, and that our physical body, our human body, is the carrying case for the soul. And when we leave the human existence, our soul leaves and moves on. And I think that if you choose to call it God, whoever that higher power would be, makes the transition comfortable for us and sends spirits that we recognize to help us cross over.
Kim, that's wonderful. And you know what I'm getting from this is that you came back to share your story. So, I thank you for calling. I thank you for sharing that with us. I see that you posted the website for the book, and I think our listeners would be wonderful to, they would want to listen. So thank you so much for calling.
Thank you so much for letting me be on. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Kim.
Thanks, you guys.
Take care now.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Wow.
Jam-packed show.
You know what? There's a quote that I wanna share real quick, and it's from Dr. Raymond Moody, and I think all of these calls have kind of illustrated it. And what it is that he said there is one common element in all near-death experiences. They transform the people who have them. In the 20 years of his experience, his exposure to the near-death experiences, he has yet to find one who has not had a deep and positive transformation as a result. And I think the calls that we got tonight totally illustrate that.
I agree.
Anthony, I think we've only covered a tiny bit of the information that's out there. There's so much. There's books, there's videos, there's documentaries, and there's so many more that are going to happen. I want to thank, everybody who called. There's so many theories. There's arguments that we couldn't cover them all in one show. I think this is a subject that's going to continue to be discussed as more and more people experience near-death experiences. Don't you think so, Anthony?
I think so. I mean, we didn't even get a chance to go through all of the information that we researched, so I think we're going to go and do another follow-up show on this. But why don't we get to our news?
Yeah. Can we do the news?
We can do the news.
From beyond our universe to the freshly dug graves, we invite you to listen to Paranormal World News with Anthony and Lucy.
I love that.
That promo sounds stranger and stranger every time I hear it.
I think it's
kind
of
Lucy.
appropriate for the night. Okay, my story is from popcrush.com, and it's from March 5th, 2012. And basically what it is, everybody knows who Adele is. Adele is terrified that her new mansion is haunted. This is a story by Jessica Sayer. And shortly after moving into her new $6 million pad, Adele says that she's too scared to sleep in it alone. She's convinced that this mansion is haunted. Adele hired a former female driver to be her bodyguard in her new home 24/7. She's reported to have told a friend that I'm not rattling around here on my own. It gives me the creep. Adele allegedly hired the bodyguard after she was hearing things that made her jump. There's not a whole lot of detail about just what the sounds were, but they were enough to terrify the singer into paying this bodyguard over $100,000 a year to stick around with her. Now, this building, this building that she bought, it used to be a convent. So, the mansion, it's big, it's got swimming pools. She described it as a safety for her. She was excited to be renting it, and then when she bought it, it turned out not to be as happy as it should have been. So we're glad that Adele is taking precautions, but we're a little skeptical here. Large houses, they tend to creak and settle. As a paranormal investigator, we all know. So we're hoping that the only thing going on is just the house itself, and it's not something more sinister. So perhaps her next tour shouldn't be with Anderson Cooper, but maybe she should take along Ghost Hunters or Ghost Adventures.
Yeah, maybe this was just another marketing ploy to just boast that she just bought a $6 million mansion. I love Adele, but come on now. All right, my news, my story. Actually, I posted this. I think it was. I can't remember now if it was earlier this week or late last week. The story about Chiller Channel, which is actually coming out this Sunday, March 11th. So if anybody, check their local listings on their cable guide and see if you've got Chiller Channel, if I can say that correctly. There's a show that's coming out this Sunday called Real Fear, The Truth Behind the Movies. And it's going to uncover the terrifying real-life stories that inspired some of the most popular horror films of all time. Paranormal investigator Katrina Weidman, who was from Paranormal State, along with 3 of her colleagues, reveals the secrets behind 4 iconic movies: Poltergeist, Amityville Horror, Silent Hill, and The Mothman Prophecies. The special also features exclusive eyewitness accounts from Lucille Herman, whose family made national attention in 1958 when they experienced unexplained poltergeist activity in their house in Seaford, New York. And Christopher Lutz, who's a friend of the show, actually, the youngest member of the Amityville family who lived through the terrifying paranormal events in the infamous Long Island home. So, synopsis of this show: journey down the haunted highways of America's East Coast on the road trip to discover the origins of our most beloved horror films, from grisly series of murders in the small town of Amityville to a devastating subterranean fire in rural town of Centralia, from the eyewitness reports of the inexplicable red-eyed creature known as Mothman to the documented paranormal activity that inspired Poltergeist. The movies may be fiction, but the fear is very, very real. I can't wait for that one. Okay, so here is where we promote and highlight fellow paranormal investigators from around the world. We've already mentioned groups from the West Coast, East Coast, and from Canada, so why hasn't your group been mentioned on our show? What are you waiting for? Just send us an email at paranormalreviewradio@yahoo.com with my promo in the subject line. Be sure to include your group's names, all of the names of your members, and any interesting facts about your groups or any of your investigations. We love giving back to the paranormal community and hope this helps get your group and your mission out in the public for everyone to notice. So we have 2 groups to promote tonight. The first one is from Edge of Darkness Paranormal. They actually, if you just type that in on Facebook, Edge of Darkness Paranormal, you can find out more information on them. The members are Kenny Wakel, Jr., he's the founder and lead investigator; Barbara McCarthy, Spade, investigator; Eric Julian, tech assistant and investigator; and Dawn Zelano, case manager and investigator. They have an upcoming event Friday, April 13th, Friday the 13th, from 9 p.m. to 3 a.m. It's a live paranormal event and lectures at the Farmers Hope Inn in Manheim, Pennsylvania. Kenny Wakel Jr. previously appeared on Animal Planet's The Haunted and Travel Channel's Paranormal Challenge. Wow, that's awesome, actually. Special guest speaker Allison Bowman, professional numerologist at visiblebynumbers.com. Tickets are $50 at the door, so please call Farmers Hope Inn for room availability at 1-877-499-6460.
Yay, Don! Yay!
Yay!
Anthony, I have a group, okay, and this group is called POST, POST, the Paranormal Observation Society of Tehachapi. You didn't think I could say that, did you?
No, I didn't think.
Okay, now they are currently a 3-person team located in Tehachapi, California. The team members are Ryan and Mandy Curlis and Jason Pendleton. Their website is www.postparanormal.com. And this group, they like to keep a small team because it helps keep the contamination factor down, and it increases the odds of finding real proof without the question of, who was that? Accountability of people during an investigation is a major concern with them. They have been conducting paranormal investigations since 2007, and they got their webpage up and running after about a year of collecting data and evidence. They have investigated all up and down Cali, as well as Nevada and Arizona. They're looking for one additional investigator to add to their team, so if you're interested, please check out their website, again, postparanormal.com, and apply to be a member.
I have some interesting news for our listeners. Next Thursday, March 15th, Lucy and I actually have the privilege of doing a private interview with Mark and Debbie Constantino. If you guys are familiar with Ghost Adventures, I believe they've been on Paranormal State and maybe Ghost Hunters. I'm not too sure yet. But Mark and Debbie Constantino are like EVP experts. I mean, if there's anything that you find on your recorder and you're not sure, you go to them and they will decipher it and tell you exactly what it is. They're awesome people. Unfortunately, between our schedule and their schedule, they couldn't do a live interview. So we're still going to interview them, but we want to include you all in on the discussion and in the interview. So if you want, email us at paranormalreviewradio@yahoo.com and send us your questions. And Lucy and I will make sure to include your name and question during the interview. We're actually going to air the show on Friday, March 23rd, and the subject, of course, is going to be EVP, Electronic Voice Phenomenon. So next Thursday, try and get us this email before next Thursday, March 15th, and we'll be sure to name you and ask your questions. So send us your questions.
I am so excited about this interview, and please, everybody, send us your questions. We want to ask them as much as we can. But, Anthony, can I announce the Fan of the Week now?
Let me think about that. Okay.
Okay. Well, I am pleased to announce our Fan of the Week. And some of you might know this person, or maybe you've heard of her, but our Fan of the Week happens to be Miss Connie Diamond of Edmonton, Alberta, Canada.
Yay!
Connie, thank you so much for being a supporter, and you know what? We love you. And penguins.
We absolutely. What's with this penguins, huh?
It's kind of like a secret thing, you kind of have to be in the know to know what it is.
Okay, all right, so I'll stay back. But congratulations, Connie. Thank you so much for being a fan and staying with us, and we wanted to honor you back with a Fan of the Week. So, Lucy?
You know what, Anthony, this was such a wonderful show to research and to do. I felt so calm and happy during the research, listening to the calls. I also got such a sense of hope and love, and I hope that you felt this too. I want to thank you, Anthony, for another fantastic show. You do so much to make this show happen, and I've told you before, and I'm going to tell you again, you are amazing. I also want to say thank you to all of our listeners. Thank you for calling. Thank you for sharing your stories. I know some of it was difficult for you to say, but you know what? Thank you. We appreciate your loyalty, your support. This is your show. Please let us know what you want to hear and what you think of the show. Stop by the show page on Facebook. Leave your comments, your questions. Just say hi. And make sure you join us next week, okay, because we're going to be reviewing witchcraft. Just what is the truth about witchcraft? Well, we're going to look at this. Let's find out what the real story is, shall we? I want you to join us then, and don't miss this show. So on that note, everybody, have a paranormal week, everyone. Good night.
Good night.
Paranormal Review Radio.